Hey guys, how's it going? So I've created for you today a checklist which is going to allow you to do fundamental analysis and make the process of identifying what coins are good and filtering through the trash can basically to make that process not necessarily easy but hopefully a step simpler for you all. And I'm also going to show you in this video an exemplar of how I have or would have used this system to conduct a fundamental analysis, checklist on Toshi before I bought it. So this is going to give you a case study of how I would use it and also an explanation. So as you can see here, it's basically just a pretty simple document. There's 3 different tabs. You've got the different fundamentals on the left side. So these are all the different fundamentals. There's the 14 fundamentals in the course, remember? The middle one is basically a series of questions which I am asking you that you need to figure out the answer to when you are studying this coin. Now, you're going to find that these questions are sort of open-ended a lot of the time and they're not necessarily straightforward. This is because there is no simple, really retard-proof way to do fundamental analysis that's simpler than this, right? Because it's not like there's no yes or no answers. It's sort of or yeah a bit or yes a lot but it's never really black and white, right? So for example, is there a difference between the current interest and future interest? There's no hard factual answer you can give here. You can't say, well, there's 150,000 tweets that have negative bias and 200,000 that have positive bias, and the usual ratio between negative and positive tweets is 73%, and based on my mathematical calculations of future success probabilities, blah, blah. There's none of that. None of that. None of that. Okay? It is subjective. A lot of the fundamental analysis is subjective, and I'm not going to be able to make it objective for you. Okay? You all want it to be, does it have this number? Does it have that number? Unfortunately, it doesn't get that simple. This is as simple as I can make it. Now, if you're watching this video after I've filmed this, a month or 2 later, there's probably going to be improvements to this. I probably would have changed a lot of it. But this is the first edition of what you're going to be getting access to. And you can see down here, this is the exemplar of Toshi. We'll get into that later. So, yeah, the questions are relatively open-ended. It allows me to give wiggle room for you guys to have wiggle room for basically conducting your analysis. It's not black or white, okay? It's more gray and colored and shit. So the third column, whatever you want to call it, is the score. So what you want to do is, below each of these questions, if you want to, if you have time, put in your answer. So, is there a notable solar flow of capital? Blah, blah, blah. Once you have completed this section, then you give it a score out of 10. So how good is the flows for this coin, right? How strong are you convicted on the flows being good for this coin, right? And then obviously you tally it all up, you give a score out of 10, and then there's a score out of 100 and 140. So I actually made that wrong. It should be 140. And so I did this on Toshi. I'm going to run through the fundamental checklist with Toshi, okay? Just to give you a case study now. Let me fix this up. This is out of 140. So that is 127, I think. Okay. So let's go over and by the way, this is recorded at 115 million market cap. So, my fundamental analysis is going to give a lower score on some of these areas because obviously since I made the thesis, things have changed a little bit, right? The price is up 50x since I made the thesis. So for example, one of the topics is perception versus reality. Obviously that score is not a 10 anymore because the market is catching on to my thesis. So I've actually accounted for that here. That's why the score down here is not 100 out of 100, 140 out of 140. It's lower because things have changed, okay? So let's go over it from the top. Oops, where are we? Okay, is there a solar flow of capital? Yeah, well, it's Coinbase to base to memes. Is there a big difference between the current interest and the future interest? Yes, the market is severely pricing the flows, blah, blah, blah. I honestly don't really want to read every question and every answer. I just can't be bothered. You guys can do this in your own time, or you're gonna fall asleep if I do it. But basically, there's just questions on flows. Then there's questions on tokenomics, right? The tokenomics is pretty straightforward. Like, are there VCs getting unlocked? No. What's the market cap to FDV ratio? Who's holding the tokens? How'd they launch it? Fair launch, airdrops? Is it deflationary? Buybacks? Blah, blah, blah. Advanced narrative analysis is all about talking about, the story. Thesis building, it's like, have you ran it by your network? What do they think? What do normies think? Pattern recognition, it's just questions about what patterns are you recognizing? What has a similar coin gone up like this in the past? What's the pattern you're recognizing? Second and third order consequences, pretty straightforward. It's just like, what are you seeing multiple steps ahead on the chessboard? How many steps ahead are you thinking? Are you just looking at what's available today in terms of information, or are you trying to predict something and that's where the money is? Team, who's building it? How's the ecosystem? Blah, blah. Community, it's like, how strong is the community? This one's pretty straightforward too. How much of the supply is locked? How much is this coin retail dominated? How active is the Telegram? Is there a thriving developer ecosystem? Is the team actually good at curating culture? Blah, blah. Mindshare is more like, can this thing go viral? How many people are talking about it? How much people are talking about it versus is it dead, right? Is the coin pronounced, what I'm trying to say is the coin pronounced dead, but everyone's still talking about it? Perception versus reality. So this is the one that got a lower score because obviously people are understanding my thesis from before. Now, 0 to 1 primitive, obviously this is not a new technology. It's a fucking meme coin, okay? It's not really relevant. Outlier price action. So, oops, didn't mean to do that. Does the coin look different to the rest of the market? Is it going flat when the market's going down? Is it going up more when the market's going up? Does the coin feel strong, okay? Initial distribution, basically how they get the coins out when it launched. So it was a fair launch, it was only retail, no VCs, no bullshit. Age of the project. So, has it gone through a pump and dump cycle? Has it existed less than a year? When does the team get unlocked? All this sort of stuff, okay? And then you basically tally it up. You give a rough estimate. There's no exact science to the score. It's just like a rough idea. And then you get a score out of 140, okay? Because there's 10 times 14, okay? So if you get a score above, let's say, 90, it's probably something worth looking into. So if you get let's say you get a score of like 70, it's probably a shit project. Like I just don't think it's worth looking into, right? Because when a score is low enough, it's just a sign that there's just not enough good things going on. Now, obviously, everything goes up in a bull run, but we're looking for the best of the best. If we're going to buy an altcoin, we want it to be tip-top, okay? We want it to be great. So I would say that you should not be posting in the room that we have for posting these coins unless it's above a score of, let's say, like a 90, okay? Let's say you found a coin and it's a score out of 80, but you really think this thing could be good. You just think the score isn't a good reflection of what it is. Obviously, you can share it. But just as a general rule, if it's below 90, probably not worth looking into. Now, once you have conducted this fundamental analysis, you can share your document into the group, okay? There's going to be a Telegram group where you can post fundamental analysis. And you're just going to look at the instructions in the group, like what you need to put, blah, blah, blah. And then you can attach this and I'll look over it, right? If you say this coin has a 120 score, I will look into it, absolutely. And then I'll get back to you guys on what I think about it and I'll tell you if I buy it, okay? So that's how it works. It's probably going to look different in a month or two, okay? If there's more questions, if it's different. Just understand this is the first edition of the Fundamental 14 checklist. Now, I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.